Huge fan of the first movie.
Thank you.
Robbed at the Oscars. That's all I'm saying.
Agreed. You can't say that, but I can. Agreed.
But what I want to ask you guys most of all is how hard was it coming up with a storyline for this? And can you talk about the idea of turning it into a saga and a sort of a trilogy?
Well, they, shortly after the movie's release, they talked about doing a sequel, and I said I like the idea so long as it can be a necessary sequel, in that it should be the middle of a trilogy, so the second act of a larger story. So with that came the idea that we'll start 5 years later in the narrative. So now Hiccup, who's kind of solved all his problems as a 15-year-old misfit within the island of Burke, now he starts 5 years later. He's the town hero, but he's kind of facing the prospect of becoming an adult and kind of clinging to the freedom of his youth. So his father's trying to groom him to take over as chief, and it just seems like a role that's not really cut out for him. And he has this restlessness that leads him kind of deeper and further away from the island of Burke to the discovery of a conflict that is kind of struck between two very dynamic characters. One guy who's a conqueror, who's out to acquire a dragon army. The other is this mysterious dragon rider who turns out to be his mother. She's living this really important life of saving dragons and learning their ways, and kind of this Diane Fossey-like full immersion. So it actually becomes the answer to that quest that's within him. It's the other half of his soul in a way.
Well, can you talk about that, like in Hiccup's journey, and where does he see himself as? Does he him? We saw one clip that's sort of been out where he's making a map and sort of exploring. Like, what is his dream?
I think like a lot of. I think like a lot of people in their late teens, he's only starting to kind of touch on what his dream is. I think he knows, like a lot of kids at that same age, that he needs to get out of his neck of the woods. I remember this like longing, I was almost crippled by it at 17, 18, where like I had never left really my city. I hadn't gone anywhere, all this different stuff, and so like I remember jonesing for it. I needed to get out and see what else was out there. As soon as I saw it, I wanted to go home. But so I think what Hiccup is grappling with again is like what every kid is grappling with. It's just like trying to figure out who they are, who they're supposed to be, who they want to be, and how do you balance that with everything that your parents expect of you and who they expect you to be. So it's sort of like it's a question of like your familial obligations and the stuff that you're interested in, and I think it's a balancing act. I think the world is filled with kids that go to universities that they don't want to, and or go to universities that their parents don't want them to, but either way they're at odds with it.
But from what I hear in this movie, Hiccup's relationship with his father is much better, or is it not?
It's improved from the first one in that his father has sort of gotten on board with the whole thing, as has everyone on Burke. Dragons are now an ingrained intrinsic aspect of the culture on Burke, as opposed to in the first movie where it took the entire movie for Hiccup to convince everyone that these beautiful creatures deserve our attention. Now even Stoic has one. That being said, I think, as Dean said, it's improved, but it's no easier, because now it has all this daunting expectation, and he's like, Stoic thinks very highly of his son and can't wait for him to fill his shoes and all this stuff, and Hiccup doesn't know that that's what he wants to do.
Well, I had not heard before this that Cate Blanchett's character actually was Hiccup's mom, and before today, which is really
amazing.
That really hasn't gotten out that much.
That's
I don't
not
know
bad.
if you knew this. It's sort of like big secret revealed at WonderCon. But my question is I'm guessing that Hiccup's dad may not be. I mean, what is his reaction, if you guys can say, to the discovery of his?
We can't say. We can't say. All that we can say, I suspect. I'm going to field this one, Dean. I think all that we can see is that you'll sort of everything will be revealed, and everything will be a bit more make a bit more sense, and you'll finally have a context to frame Hiccup and Stoic in. And actually, I think that Stoic's reaction and how he processes everything is probably a bit more surprising than you might think.
Interesting. And then
I mean, it is It is in the new trailer. Not that we really wanted it in there, but yeah, I mean, as far as Stoic seeing Valka, and it was kind of designed around this idea that he would just become mute and aghast, as though he's seeing a ghost, and she would have all these sort of defensive reasons as to why she didn't come back, and the only thing he can think of is just how beautiful it is and how happy he is to see her. So, I mean, it's a beautiful scene in the movie, and I think in context it'll hopefully play out really well. Unfortunately, with trailers, things get rolled out rather unceremoniously. So.
Yes. Somehow I missed that, which is bad.
No, it's actually refreshing for us, man.
But my last question to you guys is just, in the years since the first movie, and I know you've been involved doing some of the stuff with the TV show, like, could you just talk about, like, one of the more special moments you've ever had with a fan or a kid or somebody coming up that just, like, made you realize, wow, this is going to be, it's like talking to the guys from Frozen, like, over the past couple of months, they now realize, oh my gosh, 10 years later, people will still be coming up to me and talking to me about this. So can you just reflect on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, it's been 5 years or whatever of everyone telling me that it's their kid's favorite movie, of everyone telling me, all my friends saying, you don't understand, I hear your voice in my house all day long. But also, the coolest thing is when I've been tasked with leaving, like, voicemails, I saying, hey there, it's Hiccup, I hear you like our movie, come and hang out on Burke, and just getting to know that you're sort of making kids' days.
For breaking entertainment news and more, follow @HitFix on Twitter or visit hitfix.com.